Hi, everybody. I'm Judy, the YouTube lawyer. Today's legal live stream show brings us a special guest, attorney Mercy Changwesha, who is an immigration attorney based out of Durham, North Carolina. So she's going to tell us about her legal career, what it was like going to University of Virginia for law school, and feel free to ask her any questions in the chat box. So let's bring attorney Changwesha to the screen. Hi, Mercy.
Hey, Judy.
Hi, thank you for being here. I should have asked you, how do you pronounce your last name?
Changwesha.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you were
the
close enough.
okay, yeah. So the E is a short E, not a long
Yes.
E. So,
Yes.
okay, cool. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your family background and where
Uh-huh.
you grew up?
Okay. So I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, in a small town, Blawayo. I was there until I was 18. And then when I turned 18, I came to the US for college. I went to Grinnell University in Gainesville, Georgia. And then after college, I went to law school in Virginia. So that's pretty much it.
Hmm. Well, what was it like growing up in Zimbabwe?
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. My childhood was really, really fun. We were always outside playing. It was fun. It was fun. Lots of friends, lots of cousins.
Hmm. And do you have other people in your family who are lawyers?
So I have one. So most of my family are teachers.
Hmm.
We have a lot of teachers. My mom, um, a lot of my aunts and uncles, they are teachers, but I have one cousin who's an attorney, and that's pretty much the reason why I wanted to be an attorney because of her.
Hmm. Is she in the United States?
No, she practices in Zimbabwe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that should be interesting. Like, do you ever talk to her about the differences in the legal profession and the way the
Uh,
law works?
Not really so much. So from the time I was maybe 12, that's when she was in law school. So
Mhm,
I was really admiring like who she is as a person, and
mhm.
she's an attorney, her husband's an attorney, and I was always like, oh, their lifestyle was just so cool. So I was, oh, I want to be a lawyer.
Yeah,
But
well, what kind of attorney is she?
so she practices general law, like civil law.
Mhm.
So she was a magistrate for a while,
Oh,
and then she switched back to private practice. Yeah.
oh, okay. So very prestigious. Okay.
Mhm.
So what was it like suddenly winding up in Gainesville, Georgia? Because
Um,
I think I've been there before and driven through there, but there's really not much out there in that northern part of Georgia.
there isn't. It was very different because when I was back in Zimbabwe planning to move to the US, I guess in a way I was also not very well informed because in my mind the US was at New York City, you know?
Mhm.
So I arrived in Gainesville, Georgia, and I'm like, okay, this is not what I had in mind.
Yeah.
So it was very different, but I had a great time in Gainesville. It was very nice, and there were a lot of international students, and we all got really close. So it was a nice experience.
Mhm. Yeah, and was there any sort of pre-law advisor or any pre-law organization to teach you or tell you how to apply to law school?
Yeah, so the program that I was in was a pre-law program.
Mhm,
It was a conflict resolution and mediation program, and the professor who was head of that program was an attorney. He had a private practice and then transitioned to be a professor. So he was very helpful with the process for applying to law school. And then I was also a member of a program called Clio that helps minorities with the process. And I joined that program when I was in second year of undergrad, and they were very helpful. They would have conferences over the summer where you can go talk to law admission advisors, law admissions personnel, and they will give you some kind of tips and stuff like that for your law school application, for the LSAT. So all of that was very helpful. It was very helpful because it was a different system. In Zimbabwe, law is an undergrad degree. So you finish high school, you study law for 5 years, and you're done. So
mhm,
here in the US, of course, you have to do your undergrad and then go to law school. So I wasn't very familiar with the process. So those programs were very helpful.
mhm. Oh, well, that's great to be able to get so much, like one-on-one counseling when you're still just say a sophomore in college to learn,
Definitely.
all the steps. Yeah, that's great. And so you went to law school straight after college, right?
I did. So I did not take a break. I went directly after finished, graduated undergrad in May, and started law school in August.
Wow. And how did you decide on UVA? I mean, did you think about going to other places for law
Mhm.
school?
So I guess I had the flexibility of not being tied to any specific geographic area, because of course my family was all overseas, so it didn't really make a difference to me where I went to law school. So what I did was I applied to a whole bunch of law schools, and my general idea was whichever school gives me the most aid, I would go there because I really didn't want to be settled with the student debt. So I applied to a lot of law schools, California, Georgia, Michigan, like everywhere. So
Mhm.
UVA ended up being the best option financially.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so how much of a scholarship did they give you?
So I got a full scholarship. I got all my
Wow.
tuition covered. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that
So
is awesome.
yeah,
Gosh, you
yeah.
saved so much money then.
Oh, it was awesome, and it was helpful to me after graduation. Like I didn't have a lot of pressure. I could take my time to figure out what I wanted to do, because
Mhm,
I didn't have the loans. So that was it was great. It worked out great.
mhm. Excellent. Yeah, so, tell us what your experience was like at University of Virginia.
Um, I had a good time. I really like UVA is a great school. I really enjoyed it. They're very supportive. Um, I do think that maybe I would have enjoyed the experience a little bit more if I had done a little bit more research about what law school is like exactly. Because I think I put a lot of research into how to get into a law school, but not so much into once you're in law school itself, like what next. Um, but in general, my experience was good. In general, I had a
Mhm.
good experience.
Yeah. So UVA is sort of kind of similar, I think, to some parts of Georgia because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. You're not really close to the urban areas or fun places like DC, right? So, where did you live while you were a law student?
So I lived in an apartment complex. It was mostly students. What was it called? I can't remember what it was called, but it was like mostly students. It was very close to campus. And they
Mhm.
had a shuttle take you to school and back. So it
Mhm.
was very nice, very quiet.
Oh, okay. And did you have roommates while you were in law
I
school?
did, I did. I had three roommates.
Wow,
We
3 roommates.
had,
That's a lot
yeah,
of people to deal
we
with.
had, we had a four-bedroom apartment, but everybody had their own bathroom and their own room. So
Oh,
that wasn't so bad. And everybody was a student and everybody was busy. So it wasn't bad at all. And
yeah.
it kept my costs very low.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've never even heard of a four-bedroom apartment, but I
I
guess
know.
they have a special type of thing set up for students, right?
Yeah, and it was a huge complex. It was very big.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Were they law students that you
There were
roomed
law
with?
students, and there
Mhm,
were other students as well, like from UVA. And
mhm,
then there were also some students from, I think there was a community college close by as well. And there were some
mhm,
students from there as well.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how competitive was the atmosphere at your law school?
I would say not so much. Not so much. It
Mhm,
was very collegial. It wasn't super competitive, really.
mhm. That's good. Yeah, and did you make any good friends while you were in law school?
Yeah, I did. I did.
Mhm.
I made some good friends that I'm still in touch with.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we
Yeah.
have some questions here. Hi, Tuan. Thank you for being here. Amy Sue asked, did you think about going to UGA?
I did, and I got accepted to UGA, but
Mhm,
the financial packet was just not as good. So that was my big thing. I really, really didn't want the debt. And UVA and UGA is, I mean, it's a great school, and I visited it before because it was only 15 minutes from where I went to undergrad.
mhm.
So that would have been a beautiful option. Um, but just UVA just ended up being the better option.
Yeah, I think you chose the right place because UVA is ranked pretty high,
Mhm.
and isn't it like top 10 Would you say it's a top
Yeah. When I
10?
would say it was in the top 10, I haven't looked recently, but yeah, it was definitely in the top 10.
Yeah, yeah. So great high ranked law school and then, free tuition. That is
Mhm.
just really amazing
Yeah.
because, I think part of the reason why a lot of people end up being miserable after they graduate from law school is if they are totally burdened by, more than $2,000 a month in student loan payments and feeling strapped for cash and,
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
they can't quit to do a job that they really want to do because of the money
Right.
issues.
Hmm.
Yeah, awesome. So when you were a law student, what kind of internships did you do?
Hmm. So I did both of my internships at the legal aid in Charlottesville. So after my first year, I did my internship with the immigration clinic at the legal aid. And then after second year, after my 12 year, I did my internship at the legal aid as well, but for their civil advocacy program, where they were doing it was tenant housing law,
Mhm,
and there was something else. But I think most of what I did was the housing law.
mhm. So, what kind of cases were you doing? Like eviction type cases or foreclosure cases?
Yeah, so there were evictions. So we were representing people who were being evicted, who were facing eviction,
Mhm,
and that was pretty much what we did that summer. And I had my practice certificate at that time, so I could appear in court.
mhm.
So it was fun. It was a very good experience. And then
Oh,
1 year I was doing the immigration law.
mhm. Oh, okay. So you already started learning immigration law pretty early then.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you also take immigration law classes while you were at law school?
I did. I took immigration law classes, international law, human rights, which all had like some aspects of immigration law.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, great. And so, what happened after you graduated from law school then? What did you do?
So when I graduated from law school, I was a little bit confused about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be.
Mhm,
So I graduated in 2013 in May. But I didn't take the bar that summer because I really wasn't sure what exactly I wanted to do and where. So I just took a job doing contract drafting and reviewing for a company in Charlottesville.
mhm,
And I did that for a few months. And then I got a fellowship with, it was called Access Justice in Minneapolis. So I got
mhm.
a fellowship for a year. So I went up there and I spent a year and I decided to take the Minnesota bar. So I
Oh,
took that in February of 2014. Got admitted in May of 2014, and then decided I didn't want to be in Minnesota, but I was
mm.
now licensed in Minnesota. So,
Oh,
so
man.
that was a little fork in the road there. And then I decided to move back to Georgia. But because, of course, now I'm licensed in Minnesota, I live in Georgia, my options were a little bit limited. Um, I started doing again another contract review type of position. Wasn't really using my law degree, and then I got a contract with IBM here in North Carolina because
Mhm.
they have an immigration section where they do business immigration, where they bring in their foreign workers, and they
Yeah.
have a legal department working on that. So I
Mhm,
moved to North Carolina and I did that for about a year. Um,
mhm,
and during that time, I decided to take the North Carolina bar.
mhm,
And so I took the North Carolina bar, and then I started doing document review
mhm,
because I decided to start my own firm. But of course, I couldn't do that working full time. So
mhm,
I started doing a little bit of document review while I was establishing my firm.
mhm. Yeah, so at least it provided some steady income while you
Yeah.
were building things up. Yeah, let's take some questions here. Tuan wants to know, did they offer immigration clinics at UVA?
UVA did offer an immigration clinic, and I did take it. I took the immigration clinic for a full semester. Yeah, and it was a very hands-on clinic. Like the first day, they gave you cases, like they gave you files.
Wow.
So these are your files. This is what you're going to work on. You meet with the clients. You take the case from beginning to end. So I really enjoyed the clinics because they were very hands-on. I think the professor then was Doug Ford. I'm not sure if he's still there, but it was very hands-on. And if the client had an interview with USCIS, you got to go along um,
Mhm.
with the professor, and you got to draft the forms and fill in the G28, the representation form, that you're the law student working on the case, and then the attorney would fill out the attorney part. So it was very, very helpful.
Mhm. What kind of cases were you working on? Was it just like applying for green cards or asylum or what?
So we did a lot of VAWA cases. That's the Violence Against Women Act cases, where
Mhm.
somebody who's a spouse of a U.S. citizen, who gets abused, because most of the time, like, somebody can be married to a U.S. citizen, and that person uses the fact that the immigrant has no paperwork to kind of abuse them, hold it over their head, and
Mhm.
so that piece of the law allows them to apply for a green card on their own without the assistance of their U.S. citizen spouse. So
Mhm.
we did a lot of those cases. We did a lot of those cases. And then we also had asylum cases. We also had people who came in as refugees and were now adjusting status to get their green card. Um, yeah. So, and most of what we did was VAWA.
Mhm. Oh, okay. So you must have felt like you were making such a big difference in people's lives then.
Oh yeah, it was definitely. I mean, you could definitely see the difference. That and a lot of them, they were referred to the legal aid or the immigration clinic through, like, social organizations, like they've been through so much, and then they finally get referred to the clinic, and they're able to get their legal services at no cost. So it was
Mhm.
like just a huge relief for them.
Yeah, how wonderful. I'm glad you had that opportunity and
Oh,
you learned so much practical information by doing the
exactly.
clinic. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, hi, Serena. Thanks for being here. She says, thanks for sharing. UVA is number 8. I immigrated to the US at age 15. I'm self aware of my English. Being a non native speaker in the law, have you overcome challenges around that?
um I think because I'm in immigration and so many people are foreign, and there are
Hmm.
all sorts of accents, I haven't
Hmm.
really had a problem. I'm not sure if I was practicing another type of law, if that would be an issue. Um, but in the immigration space, honestly, I haven't had any problems. Um, it's Yeah, I think it's just a very diverse um, legal practice area.
Hmm.
So you kind of can really blend in with no issues.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah. But then also in Zimbabwe, weren't you educated in English?
Right. So I am educated in English from the time you're about maybe 6.
Mhm.
So I didn't speak English until I went to school, which was about age 6. And
Oh.
then it's more of an immersion type experience, because almost everything is taught in English. So you kind of start speaking English pretty early.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah. So I guess if she meant like she doesn't really speak English that well, maybe in that sense. But in immigration, I find that there's a there's a lot more room in the immigration law space, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, people just want you to be trustworthy and they want to feel comfortable with you that you're going to really work hard on their behalf. So even if you have a slight accent, well, the clients have
Exactly.
accents too anyway,
That's
right?
true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Interesting. Okay. And then Serena also asked, you mentioned earlier you weren't as prepared for law school as you wished you were. What parts of law school did you refer to? What parts of law school were the most challenging?
Whew. Um, so I think, in undergrad, your grades accumulate, right, throughout the semester.
Mhm.
So you're taking like tests, quizzes, whatever. It's 5% of your grade, it's 2% of your grade. And then in law school, it's just that final exam. For most classes, especially that first year, it's just that last exam, right? Nothing else. We didn't even have any tests like in between. It was just like you go to school the whole semester, then you take a final exam. And I think um, I hadn't processed that. So it got a little bit stressful, knowing that you have to get all this information. and making that transition from the way you do things in undergrad to the law school, the way the law school exams are. So that part, and you have a lot more independence too, because you can do whatever you want with your time, but you just need to get your exams right at the end of the day. So I think that it took me a while to to get that straight.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you too. I mean, the grading is totally different from undergrad or high school.
Mhm.
And, it's kind of like weird. It's like, why did they do it that way? Does that
Right.
really mirror the real life experiences of being a practicing attorney? Like writing
Mhm.
one big paper and bam, there you go,
Right.
here's your grade. So I found it frustrating in that respect because there were so many times when I thought that, I understood things and I thought I did well in the final, but then I would just get like some crummy, like a B, B minus.
Right.
I remember one of my classmates being really mad because she got a C plus in
Uh,
constitutional law, and I'm sure she felt like her career was over. So, that
yes.
happens because, well, at UVA, do they grade you on a curve where some people are going to get C's?
They did
Mhm,
grade on a curve. So most people will get like a B plus or B minus, but
mhm,
if you did it really well, then you can get an A. Or if you did really well, I don't know if I can say really bad, but or if you're on the other side of the curve, I guess you can get a
mhm,
C or C
mhm,
minus. So and I think what you're saying is correct about the pressure. Like you feel like your whole career has ended, so there was also that feeling of like not so much like competitive, but just with yourself, because you're so used to getting straight A's throughout college, high school, um, straight A's, straight B's, and then suddenly you're on this curve, and it's kind of a mystery really how things are going to turn out because it depends on how everybody else did.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, did you find that a lot of the classmates were competitive or like was anybody there like those like stereotypical gunners that always had to talk and raise their hands and try to be the teacher's pet?
so, not so much, not so much.
Mhm.
And also the other thing is even that mentality of someone being a gunner is kind of different also from college, because I was used to participating in college when I was in college. So when you get to law school, suddenly you can't raise your hand because everybody's looking at you like, okay, so that was also a transition for me that I picked up really quickly. Like, what, I'm not gonna say anything.
Mhm.
But
I
in
see.
general, I didn't get the sense that people were like out to, compete and all that. UVA was really not like that. And I know maybe there are some law schools where there's really that sense,
Mhm.
but at UVA really wasn't. We wasn't like that.
Yeah. Okay. So Amy Sue asked, did any other people at your law school end up doing document review?
I don't know. I don't know if any did. I know there was a point in my career where I did document review, but I'm not sure if anybody else did.
Mhm. What was the experience like? I mean, when you were there, you were there in person, right? You couldn't work from home.
That's correct. Yeah, I was there in
Mhm.
person.
Mhm. And were you
Yes.
reviewing documents for like class action lawsuits?
Yes, it was class action lawsuits. Yeah, mostly class action lawsuits. Um, I mean, it's not that bad. Like, people make document review sound like the worst thing in the world. It's really not that bad.
Mhm.
Especially if you're working on something else. Um, and like it's not like this is your life now. You're doing document review. It's not bad, and it's paid by the hour. So you just get paid for the hours that you're there, and then if you have something else to do, you don't show up. So it's flexible in that sense.
Mhm. Did you run into any situations where you got, like laid off periodically when there wasn't any doc review work?
The agency that I worked with when I did document review was pretty good about just rolling you over to another project.
Mhm.
So
Oh, that's
so
good.
I didn't have that experience, but I know some of the people I worked with had come from agencies where sometimes they wouldn't work for 3 months. Um, so that's something that's definitely that's definitely the case with document review, depending on what agency you work with.
I see. Okay.
Mm.
And she also asked, did you get a lot of interviews after you graduated from law school?
So I got interviews while I was in law school. Um, trying to remember now, because I was applying for legal aid type positions, nonprofits. Those were the kind of positions I was applying for. So I got a few of those interviews, and then I ended up taking the fellowship in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do the law firms, like the big firms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you seem to definitely have a public interest bent with your
Right.
internships. Yeah, but why did you go to Minnesota then? I mean, did you know anybody there or have any relatives there?
Yeah, I had a relationship with somebody who was in Minnesota. So when I was looking for fellowships, I picked one that was in that state.
Oh, I see. Yeah, was
Mm.
it very cold there? I mean, that's
Oh,
all I think about.
it was very cold. I
Mhm.
got there in, I think it was like August, and it wasn't bad then, but by October, it was it was very cold. But I
Mhm.
mean, Minnesota is nice. I was in Minneapolis, and they've planned for the weather. It's not like here in North Carolina where just a little bit of snow, everything shuts down.
Mhm.
They've planned for the weather, and it's not bad.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I guess you were kind of like quickly realized after about a year that you didn't want to stay in Minnesota, which kind of stinks because you went through all the trouble of getting licensed there and taking
That's
the bar
true.
exam. And yeah. So, but then when you came to North Carolina, you had to take a new bar exam, right? You
That's
couldn't
true. Yes, I
waive
did.
in. Yeah. So, how did you study for the North Carolina bar?
So I used, I think it's called, is it called Themis? I used Themis, the
Oh,
bar
Themis.
review
Yeah.
company. Yeah, and I
Yes.
took the online course. I just did the online course, and I cut down my work. I only worked maybe 2 3 hours a week. No, sorry, 2 3 days a week.
Mhm.
And then the month before the bar, I just took the whole month off,
Mhm.
and then I just studied, and and then I took it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, congratulations. Now, you took 2 bar exams and passed them. Yeah. Are you still licensed in Minnesota?
I am still licensed. It's very difficult to get unlicensed
Yeah.
because it's just a whole other thing. But anyway, I'm still licensed in Minnesota. So now I'm licensed in Minnesota and North Carolina.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Serena says, I'm very passionate about immigration law, given my own immigration experience and trilingual skills. How difficult is it to work in an immigration attorney capacity at the Department of Homeland Security?
Um, I'm not sure actually about the process. I know some people I went to law school with ended up working for USCIS as immigration attorneys for USCIS. So I know it's doable, but I'm not familiar with the process of getting employed with DHS. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do have a distant relative who is an attorney who works for immigration services up in DC. So maybe I'll ask him if he'll be a guest in the future. So,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, and I think he likes his job. I mean, he's been working there for probably more than 10 years now.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
after he went to Cornell Law School. Yeah.
Oh,
So Amy Sue says, did any of your classmates get big law job offers? Isn't that pretty prevalent for a school like UVA? A lot of people
yeah.
are going to
So
big law.
yeah. So most people, I would say most people, ended up at Big Law. I would say maybe in my section I think we were like 30. So I'll say maybe 15 15 to 18 ended up at Big Law, and then a few people were at regional law firms, and then a few people went into public interest.
Hmm. Yeah. Did you keep in touch with any of your law school classmates who did big law and find out what happened to them?
Yeah, I have two people I know who did Big Law, and one of them is still in Big Law, and then another one took an in-house position.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think things usually work out well for people that go to UVA law school because it's one of the best law schools in the whole country. So,
True.
and the cool thing is that, it's a public school, right? So some
Yes.
people actually don't have to pay a ton of money to go.
That's
Yeah,
true. Yes.
that's a good value. Yeah. Serena asks, what were the job prospects for UVA students who might fall under the second half of the graduating class?
I didn't really get the sense that people who might fall under the second half, like she's saying, have less prospects, because UVA has a pretty big network. They bring in like so many firms on campus. Like if that's what you're interested in, probably you pretty much get it. Get some
Mhm,
sort of offer with whether it's big law or a regional firm. I feel like most people end up doing what they wanted to do,
mhm.
for the
Yeah.
most part. Mhm.
Yeah, and did a lot of people wind up working for the government since DC is
Yeah,
not too far?
yeah, and we have a lot of people that end up working for the government, and
Mhm,
all over the country, really.
mhm,
Some of them are in Georgia, whatever. A lot of people ended up working for government agencies.
mhm. I see. Yeah, so can you tell us more, like, what was your experience like trying to start your own law practice?
Hmm. So once I decided that's what I wanted to do, um, I did a lot of research in terms of just reading up on starting a practice and also reaching out to attorneys who are already practicing in this area. Just chatting on the phone or meeting up, and so I could get their experiences and see, what kind of advice they had. Um, and then and then I just took the risk. I just took the leap. And the good thing about being an attorney is you can always reinvent yourself. Like if you start a firm and decide it's not working out for you, you can just get a job, you know. So I was like, okay, I feel like this is what I want because I want to be in charge of my schedule. And I didn't really feel like a lot of the positions you get really give you that flexibility as far as just being in charge of what you want to do, and to practice the way you want to practice. So so I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. And I started my practice, and I started it very lean. I didn't have a lot of overhead, um, and I was still working, so my practice was pretty much part-time. And as my practice grew, that's when I transitioned out of working. And it took me a while. Like I probably pushed the work way further than I needed to have. But you
Mhm,
always have that fear of, the stability of the paycheck coming in, and suddenly it's just you.
mhm.
So I worked for as long as I could, and then finally I just backed away and focused on my practice.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I remember the kind of this, like, scary feeling of just jumping in and then seeing, like, every month I have 0 revenue for the month, and then I have to build it up and, still have to pay all the overhead and bills and, cell phone bills, supplies. There's, like, so
Hmm.
many things to think about when you have your own practice. Yeah. Well, did you have any mentors or any anybody helping you out to give you advice?
Yeah, so when I started, I called up a few attorneys here in North Carolina, and a lot of them, it was really just cold calls where I was just like, hey, introduce myself. I'm trying to start a practice. And you'd be surprised. So many people are like, oh, come over to my office, let's chat, or, let's meet for lunch or whatever. And then I found two immigration attorneys who were like, oh, very happy to mentor me, as I said, in my practice. So that was very helpful because I could bounce off questions off of them, and that was very helpful. That was very
Mhm.
helpful.
That's really nice. I mean, did you think about maybe working for another immigration attorney first to
Mhm.
just kinda get your feet wet?
Yeah, I did. So when I did my fellowship when I was in Minnesota, one of the ladies there was an immigration attorney. So I was basically under a family law attorney and an immigration attorney.
Mhm,
Um, and I think that experience, I enjoyed the experience, but at the same time I realized that the way I want to practice may not be the same as the way somebody else wants to practice. So I really didn't want to go and work for another immigration attorney. I really wanted to do things my way. And so and also I just wanted the flexibility, um, to have my own schedule. So I decided I was just going to start my own practice.
Hmm. Yeah, that's excellent. And did you also get involved with ALA, the Immigration Lawyers Group?
Yeah, so one of the first things I did before I even started my practice was to join AILA. So I was able to, because they have a toolkit for starting your practice. They have
Oh.
so many resources,
Mhm.
so much mentorship, and they have listservs. So even if you run into a substantive question and you can figure out which direction to go in, you can just shoot an email to the listserv and somebody will help you. Um, so I've been a member of AILA ever since I started my practice, and that's one thing I never drop. And I like that they're always so on top of updates. Like USCIS changes anything, they are so quick because they send you an email every day with, what's going on today, all the updates. So you're always like know what's going on, what's the latest news, which was very helpful. I think in the past administration we had so many changes. So AILA at that time was, I mean, it was a lifesaver because so many things changed in the course of like a week, you know. So it was
Mhm.
very nice to keep up and know, okay, this is what's going on, this is what's going on. Yeah, so
Mhm.
I highly recommend AILA to anybody who's thinking about practicing immigration law.
Yeah, that's so nice. It seems like, from what I've seen with my friends who do immigration law, it seems like there's a lot more camaraderie. Like people are happy to help out each other or give each other advice and stuff, as
Yeah,
opposed to, say like divorce attorneys where
right,
sometimes you run into opposing counsel that you really can't
right,
stand, or they're just really nasty and full of themselves and stuff. I mean, some people are nice, but still, I really see a marked difference, based on
right,
my own experience, versus what I see my friends who do immigration law. It seems
uh-huh,
like they're all buddies and they socialize, and,
right,
everybody knows each other and stuff. Yeah. So,
right.
have you been
Yeah.
to one of their conventions, the
So
ALA
I haven't
convention?
been to any of the conventions in person. I've
Mhm.
attended the ones that were virtual, like in the past 2 years or so. But hopefully, I get to go to an in-person one soon. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, my younger sister practiced immigration law for a while in Charlotte
Mhm.
for a law firm, and they sent her out to one of, or maybe one or two of the conferences. And I remember one was somewhere around San Diego, and she had a
Oh
really good
no.
time and, made a lot of friends and made
Uh,
connections and stuff. Yeah.
no, that's
So
nice. Yeah, they always try to put them somewhere nice.
yeah, yeah, and of course, it's even better if you work for a firm that's gonna pay for you to
That's
go
a
out there, right? As
different.
opposed to
That's
you
true.
having to use your own money to go to the conference, but it's
That's
still a
true.
business expense. Yeah, so Tuan says, "I think it's awesome you're able to do both while establishing yourself."
Thank you.
Hi, Tony, thank you for being here. Yes, if someone visiting the USA on a visa has a baby in the US territory, is the child. Yes, right? The
Yeah.
child is
Yeah.
automatically, that's the way it
Yeah.
is in the US. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way it is in the US, and it's not like that in most parts of the world. In most parts of the world, it depends on the nationality of the parents. But in the US, if the child is born in the US, then they are US citizen, except
Mhm,
if they are a child of a diplomat.
mhm. I see. And isn't it true that if it's the father that is the US citizen, then and the child isn't born in the US, then the father needs to do some paperwork or do something proactively to make sure the child gets citizenship?
That's correct. If the father and the mother are not married,
Oh, okay.
if the parents of the child are not married, then the father needs to legitimate the child before the child
Mhm.
can be considered a US citizen.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, there's just, like, so many nuances out there. I mean, and so this is something that my sister, the one that did immigration law, she would tell me that there are so many people, so many attorneys that dabble in immigration law that claim that they do immigration law, but they really are doing a disservice to their clients and screwing
Mhm.
up people's cases, and so
Mhm.
she really couldn't stand it when she would see
Mhm.
these attorneys marketing themselves as immigration lawyers when they did a ton of other practice areas. I
Right.
mean, do
Mhm.
you feel like that also, that there are some people that shouldn't be
Um,
dabbling in
I think
immigration?
I think that immigration takes a lot of it's a lot of research, because just one small variation in the fact pattern changes completely the direction that you will advise someone to go in, you know. So you have to really be paying attention to the details. So, I mean, I think it would be difficult to do immigration and a whole bunch of other practice areas at the same time.
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I never tried to even think about that. Yeah. So, what about your clientele? Like, what kind of clients do you normally get?
So most of my clients are young people who are getting married
Mhm,
and getting their green card through their spouse.
mhm,
I have a lot of um, VAWA clients
mhm.
who are victims of abuse, whether it's from their spouse or their U.S. citizen parent or their adult U.S. citizen child. So I have a lot of VAWA cases. I have some U visa cases, people who are victims of crime.
Oh,
Um, I also have a few of the EB cases, which is people who are coming to the United States through employment. So I have a few of those as well. But the majority of my cases are family based. So people are bringing their spouse, people are bringing their fiance, people are bringing their kids.
mhm.
So that's most of my clientele.
Okay. Are people allowed to bring more distant relatives, like a cousin or an aunt or an uncle?
So as far as immigration is concerned, the only family members you can petition for are if you are a U.S. citizen, you can petition for your parents, you can petition for your children who are under the age of 21, your children who are over 21, and you can petition for your siblings.
For a what?
Your siblings,
Oh, siblings. Okay, so you can't petition for your cousin then.
no. And
Oh, okay.
if you're a green card holder, you can only petition for your spouse and your children under 21 and children over 21 who are not married.
Okay.
And that's it. So a U.S. citizen, the only additional people a U.S. citizen can bring are their parents, their siblings, and married children over the age of 21.
Mhm,
So aunts, cousins, uncles, grandparents, those ones you cannot petition for them in a relative petition. If you own a business, you can petition for them as employees, but you cannot petition for them as a relative.
oh, well, do you ever run into people who wanna, like, adopt their relative so that they can bring them over? I mean, is that allowed?
So it's allowed, but under specific circumstances. Like you cannot adopt a 28-year-old
Yeah,
bring them
yeah.
here, you know? So it has to be somebody who's under the age of 16 and they have to not have parents, like either they are orphans or they've been abandoned or things like that. And once you adopt them, they cannot come here and then petition for their biological parents. So
Mhm,
once they are adopted, that's it. They are now they cannot petition for their biological parents. So if you say they are abandoned and you adopt them, they cannot
mhm,
later on turn around and petition for their biological parents.
mhm. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so many nuances there because, I just barely know anything about this immigration law stuff because it's not like my little sister and I really talked much about her work and stuff. So,
Hmm.
yeah. Let me see. Oh, have you ever watched that TV show called 90 Day Fiance?
I love it.
You love it, really? Like, does it make you laugh? Like, seeing
It makes me
like
laugh so
the
hard.
couple?
And then one of the attorneys I know received an email from that show asking her, did she have any clients, that would be interested? Did she have any K fiance visa applicants who would be interested in being on the show? And I was like, oh, well, I would never advise any of my clients to go on that show. But it makes me laugh.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, because I mean, sometimes I think they deliberately want to show these like really weird couples or couples
Right.
where it's obvious that the poor immigrant is just using this American person to
Right.
come over to the country, because they're so mismatched. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
well,
very funny.
yeah, well, Serena has a serious question, but she asks, does it benefit your firm to charge on a per case basis or an hourly rate basis for immigration services? How frequently do you go to the court and usually for what types of cases?
So for the types of cases I do, I charge on I charge on a flat. I charge flat fees. I don't charge on an hourly basis. But there are some other types of cases that it would be helpful to do an hourly rate. I think some people who do maybe business immigration can do an hourly rate. It's so but for me, the kinds of cases I do, I charge on a I charge on a I charge flat fees. Um, I don't go to court frequently. Most of my clients are not in removal proceedings. They are filing affirmative petitions. So I go to the USCIS office for their interviews. Um, so it's rare for me to go to court because the majority of my clients are not people who are in removal proceedings.
Hmm. Yeah. So, and removal means like deportation, right?
Yes, deportation.
Yeah. So those are the ones where they have to go to immigration court. Um,
Right.
is there an immigration office in Raleigh or Durham now?
Yes, so there's a an immigration USCIS office in Durham, right by the airport, very close to the airport.
Oh,
But there is no immigration court. The immigration court is in Charlotte.
okay. I
Mm.
see. Okay. And then sometimes I hear about some attorneys having to drive to Georgia, to Lumpkinville or somewhere. What's that there?
So people who are picked up here in the Raleigh Durham area,
Mhm,
they if they are going to be detained
mhm,
by ICE, they are sent to Georgia. They're sent to Lumpkin, Georgia.
mhm,
There is no ICE detention here in this area. So those people will be transported to Georgia. So, for example, if somebody's arrested, um, and then their their paperwork is they're out of status, and ICE decides to detain them, they'll send
mhm.
them to Georgia. That's where they'll be detained.
Okay, I see.
Mm.
Okay. Tony asked if someone comes to the USA as a refugee and they arrive with no funds, what happens? Does the government offer financial, housing, or health support?
Yeah, so there are many organizations that work with the government for specifically to support refugees. So they'll usually give them housing, get them set up with English lessons if they need them,
Mhm.
some stuff to help them search for jobs and get ready for those jobs. So they definitely have those programs for people who arrive as refugees.
Mhm. Well, sometimes you hear about churches sponsoring a bunch of refugees. So,
Mhm.
do the churches get paid by the government to do that kind of work?
I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I know there are some sort of I think there are organizations that are sanctioned by the government, and then the churches just pitch in to supplement. Because here in the Triangle, I can't remember what the name of that organization is, but it's like something for refugees. But they'll always be reaching out for assistance, donations, things like that. And so that's where churches pitch in.
Hmm. I see. Yeah. And did anybody help you become a US citizen? Like, how were
Mhm.
you able to become a citizen?
So I got married and became a U.S. citizen that way.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Is that the fastest way to become a citizen is to marry
It
another
is,
citizen?
yeah,
Okay.
it is in most cases, either that or through a child, an adult child who's a U.S. citizen. So, like when you petition for your parents, or when you petition for your spouse, or when you petition for your child who's under the age of 21, those are the processes that are faster.
I see. Okay. Yeah, thanks for the information. So I don't know if you're able to answer this question, but I think this person is asking what is the salary for an immigration attorney? Well, I mean, let me tell you this because like more than 10, 15 years ago, when I was part of the Durham County Young Lawyers Group,
Uh-huh.
there was a young woman that was very honest and told us that she was getting paid like 32,000 a year to work for this immigration attorney. I mean, granted that was like 10 to 15 years ago, so what would
Right.
that be in today's dollars? Maybe like, 42,000? Yeah. And I was like, "Dang, I can't believe it," because this person that she worked for was pretty well known for in
Oh,
immigration law.
wow.
Yeah, but then that person ended up moving away and probably like worked for a bigger firm, slightly bigger firm later on down the road. But I couldn't believe how little she was getting paid. But
Oh,
but then there are also attorneys that work for the slightly bigger firms, and they're doing employment-based immigration. So those types of jobs usually pay a lot better. Like you could be making well over 100,000.
hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think um well, I won't answer you how much I make, but
Yeah.
I think when you're working for yourself, it's a little bit different as well.
Mhm.
Because when you're working for somebody else, especially if you're working for a small firm, of course they won't be able to pay you that much because they're also trying to make money from you working there.
Mhm.
So when you work for yourself, I think you have more leeway to make more.
Yeah, exactly. That's why so many people say, "Forget it. Now that I know what I'm doing, I'm not gonna keep working for this person."
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so Serena says immigration is federal law. Do you need to pass another state's bar license to practice in that state? Did you need to obtain an immigration license if that exists on top of your bar license?
So yeah, immigration is federal, so you can use you can use your license from another state to practice immigration law. However, some like my immigration clients, if they have a traffic ticket, I can do that for them. If they need to do an uncontested divorce, I can do that for them. Um, so I feel like it's been helpful to me to have the North Carolina license because there are
Mhm.
so many things I can do for my immigration clients that I can do and I don't have to outsource it to somebody else. But if you wanted to just use your license from another state, that's fine too.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is there's another piece of what I do is called SIJS. Those are cases for it's called the Special Immigrant Juvenile. So those are cases of young immigrants, like children really, who have been abandoned or neglected, and we can apply for a green card for them. But you first have to get a state court to certify that they have been abandoned. So that's a state case. So because I'm licensed in North Carolina, I can do the custody part of that um, to get the state to say, okay, these kids have been abandoned, and then we take that state court order and apply for SIJS.
Mhm.
So if you are not licensed in that state, you would have to outsource that piece of the work to an attorney who's licensed in that state.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, okay, so totally, it makes sense that you would wanna be licensed here in North Carolina even though you
right,
could have just used your Minnesota bar license to only
right.
do immigration.
Hmm.
Yeah, but there's no such thing as an added immigration license, right? It's not like doing patent law where
No,
you
no,
have
no,
to
no,
take
no.
another one.
No, there isn't. There isn't.
Mhm.
It's just like any other area of law. Like if you decide to change and practice something else, you don't need an additional license. Yeah.
Mhm. And, although in North Carolina now, they do have a board specialty in immigration law where you could take an additional test just to be able to say that you are board certified in immigration law, and maybe
Right.
that would possibly help people get more clients or charge more.
Yeah,
Um,
they do have that
mhm,
board specialization, and it's just taking the exam, and you have to show that you've practiced in several different types of immigration, several different types of areas in immigration law, and then you
mhm,
can just study for the exam and take it.
mhm, I see. Okay, well, this is kind of a specific question. What is immigration fraud and who prosecutes it? Is it an administrative or judicial proceeding?
So there are many aspects of immigration fraud. Like there are so many things, right?
Mhm,
It could be there are people who say somebody's their child and that's not their child, you know,
mhm,
just so they can petition for that person. There are people who make fraudulent documents, you know. Maybe you say you're married to someone and you make a fake marriage certificate, or companies who report that they've hired 10 employees and the employees are on site, but really those employees just paid the company to say, to petition for them, but they are not really working there. So
mhm.
there are so many different types of what's considered immigration fraud. um, I think the Justice Department handles that because I don't think it's a state thing.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The Justice Department or US Attorney General's office, you
Yeah,
think?
probably. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's probably some like toll-free number um, on the government website where you can report people, right?
Oh
If
yeah,
they
yeah.
committed fraud.
they They
Yeah.
usually have those on the USCIS and the ICE pages.
Yeah. Paper Thin, thank you for being here. Would you have done big law if you didn't get a full ride to UVA to just pay off the loans?
Um, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, that's a hypothetical that she never had to think about,
That's true.
right? Yeah. Well, I think also, plus, since you were interested in public interest anyway, maybe you
Mm,
could have taken advantage of that public interest student loan forgiveness.
that's true.
Yeah. So, but she just did so well that she was able to get a scholarship, full ride to UVA. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Fred. Thank you for being here. He says, I remember Trump banning citizens of certain countries from coming to the US. What happened to people from those countries that were already here and needed to reapply for visas during that time?
So that ban was really for people who were outside the country, who were applying at the consulate.
Hmm.
So it didn't apply to people who were already here, and it didn't apply to people who already had a green card and all that. Um, and it's not in effect anymore.
Yeah. Okay, so nobody was getting rounded up just because they were from the banned country. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Okay, Serena says, I know of a Spanish-speaking immigration attorney who had worked as a paralegal at the same large law firm prior to attending a regional school. She got paid well. It helps to have contacts, right?
No, that's very true. And I think also, if you know what state you want to be in, it can be helpful to go to school in that state, even though
Hmm.
it may not be like ranked as high or whatever. Um, it may be helpful because I see a lot, especially with NCCU alumni. They are
Hmm.
very close knit, and you
Hmm.
can see that they able to support each other that way. So I
Hmm.
think it's good if you know where you want to be, to go to a school close by.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
and definitely it just helps so much more if you can speak other languages
Yes.
when you
Hmm.
wanna market yourself as an immigration attorney. Speaking of that, so how have you been marketing yourself since you started your own practice?
So I do a lot of community forums. So
Mhm,
lots of different groups will ask me to speak, um, with just a forum, maybe like foreign students, things like that. Um, so that has been very helpful. And also, I find that my clients, my former clients and my current clients, those are the best people to bring in clients. So I try my very best to make sure each client has a good experience, and that way they refer other people to me. And also just networking with people, other attorneys who are in different spaces, who are practicing different types of law, having that referral network where I refer clients to them, they refer clients to me, and
mhm,
also the the other professionals that I use, I also make sure that they know what I do, and also, if they run into other people that need my services, like the person who does my accounting, I make sure I'm always like, hey, I do immigration law, and he sends me clients. um, the realtor who I used to buy my house, make sure he knows, hey, I do immigration, because those are
mhm,
people that know people. Those are people that are in constant contact with other people, and then I do the same for them too. If I see somebody who needs help with this and accounting or realtor, whatever. So it's just really, I think it's constant. Like the marketing is just constant, like constantly repeating, this is what I do, this is what I do, and making sure you get that message out to as many people as you can, and also treat your clients well. Those are the best people to send you clients.
mhm, definitely, yeah. Do you give free consultations or do you typically charge for the consultations?
So I don't give free consultations. I do a quick, maybe 5-10 minute call, because I don't like for someone to schedule a consultation and maybe it's an area that I don't handle. So I will give a quick 5-10 minute call, so the person can let me know what they need.
Mhm.
If it's something I can help with, then I send them a link to my calendar and they can schedule a consultation, and make the payment. So I don't do free consultations.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that's pretty wise, otherwise, they could just be milking you for all your information and then try to do it themselves or something, so,
Mhm.
I don't know if you can answer this, do you know about this case? I never heard of it.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, never heard of that. Sorry. Okay, anecdotally, do you ever find immigrants who seem more patriotic than normal US citizens?
I, yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I guess I don't know really how. I guess I've never thought of it, how to see whether somebody's patriotic or not. Um,
Yeah. I mean, but usually I think like most immigrants are just very happy to be in this country. They're just like
that's true.
because they left. I mean, they're the ones that wanted to leave their old country and come to the US, so they had to be gaining something out of it, right?
Mhm,
Because it takes a lot of sacrifice to uproot yourself and then be seen as a foreigner and not really know the language or the culture and not have your family and friends around you, to uproot
mhm.
yourself
That's
and come
true.
to
Yeah.
another country. So I think most immigrants are like really just thrilled or feel a sense of relief to make it
Mhm,
to the United States, depending on how bad things were in their
mhm.
previous
Where they're
country.
coming from. Mhm.
And then also, right, the citizenship test is actually really hard. I think a lot of like average Joe Americans probably wouldn't be able to pass the citizenship test, right?
No, that's true. That's true. A lot of people have to study like quite a bit. But the good thing is you have all the questions, like all the possible questions.
Mhm.
So that's a good part.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's just a little bit over an hour now. So, do you have any parting words of wisdom to anyone thinking about going to law school or becoming an immigration attorney?
Yeah, I think going to law school, I think the best advice I would give is just try your best to go to just be open to going somewhere that's not gonna that's not gonna put you in as much debt.
Hmm.
I think it makes you more flexible um, for after law school, and not it makes you not have that much pressure. Um, so that's what I would advise. And as for opening your own practice, I mean, it's scary. It's always much nicer to just show up and get a paycheck. Um, Having a practice means you're looking at all sorts of stuff that you don't have to worry about in a job, accounting, office supplies, or all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I've found it very rewarding. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody needs an immigration attorney, since it's federal law, you don't really physically have to be here in North Carolina to be represented by Mercy Changwesha. So
Mhm.
here's her website. Anybody wants to um, get any sort of information on immigration law or know somebody that needs an immigration lawyer, feel free to contact her. Yeah, so thank you so much, Mercy. It's really nice to hear more about you, especially since we're more like Facebook friends. So I never really
Right.
got to know your background and all these details about you growing your practice and stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it's so nice to be able to talk to you through this live
You,
stream.
you
Yeah.
too, Judith.
Okay.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having
Thank you
me.
guys for being there. And then, so tomorrow we're going to switch back to pop culture and the Johnny Depp trial again tomorrow because so many people have been watching that live stream I did about the Johnny Depp Amber Heard verdict. So
Uh,
I'm going to be joined by a fellow divorce attorney, except he's in Pennsylvania, and his name is Jonathan Noble Esquire. I did a live stream with him probably about like 2 or 3 months ago also, but I think his channel focuses a lot more on divorce and family law from a man's perspective, like making sure that men are treated fairly in divorce cases and stuff. So it'll be really interesting to hear Jonathan Noble's take on the verdict tomorrow. So that's going to be at 5 o'clock on Saturday Eastern time if you guys want to join in. Yeah. So thanks, Tony, for being here and everybody else who showed up. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time. And Mercy, if you can hang on for a minute so I can say goodbye to you then.
okay.
Okay. Thank you.